On Rlx 1.5, Reliq gets a series of new track generators. These generators are designed as conversational tools. They respond to musical input with suggestions that they aim to be structured, constrained, and open to interpretation. Their goal is to help break habits, explore variations, and inspire happy accidents. Let's start by making a very simple pattern on an empty track. I just entered a C3 on step 1 and a G2 on step 16. I will later use this pattern as a starting point to explore generators. The first generator on Rlx 1.5 is called Monogroove, and it's specific to melody tracks. Monogroove will accept any track of type chords or melody as an input. It will analyze its contents and suggest a monophonic phrase suitable for a bass line. The first parameter in Monogroove is called density and defines how sparse or busy the pattern is. Right now we practically get only one note. We can define the range of melodic motion by changing the motion parameter. Our pattern is also very regular. We can define how much freedom in terms of rhythm we give to Monogroove by modifying the rhythm parameter, so we can get more syncopated and surprising patterns. Let's get rhythm down to 10% so we can have a slightly more static bass line. This is just the first interpretation of Monogroove. If I want, I can click reseed at any moment in time and get a different interpretation of the same parameters. I can also set monitor to on, so Monogroove will always listen for changes on the input track, or monitor to off if I want to lock this pattern and proceed with modifying. Now that we have a sort of a static bass line, let's go to a drum track and load the Euclidean generator to get a bit of rhythm. And let's move to the next generator of Rlx 1.5, called Chordrift. Chordrift is specific to chord tracks, and similar to Monogroove, it will accept any track of type melody as an input. It will analyze its pattern and come up with a suggestion for a chord progression. Let's start by setting the input track to the same channel. Right now, portion is at 100% and instability at 0. For Chordrift, this means that it will generate a chord for every event on the input pattern. We have 2 notes on track 13, so we get 2 chords from Chordrift. If I start getting the portion down, I'll get less events. When instability is at 0, Chordrift will behave more like a harmonizer, so it will generate an equal amount of steps as chords as the input track. If I start introducing more instability on Chordrift, I will give it more rhythmical and progression freedom. I can define how spread my chords will be, and also the complexity of the chords by modifying the color. Let's simplify the pattern a bit. I can, as always, request a new interpretation of the same parameters, and I can switch the monitor from off to on. As long as monitor is on, if I do any changes on the input track, Chordrift will adjust immediately. Same as Monogroove. I can load as many instances of Monogroove or Chordrift as I want on Rlx 1.5. So let's load another Chordrift on a soft synth. Set the input track to the harmonic oscillator track, maybe add a bit of spread. On both Melodrift and Chordrift, the generated pattern is stored on a clip, which means that I can modify it at any moment in time. Let's get speed half, and let's use duration offset. Let's move to the next generator of Rlx 1.5, which is specific specific to tracks of type melody, and it's called Melodrift. Melodrift will be scale and root aware, and will provide suggestions for melodic phrases. The first parameter is density, that defines how dense or sparse the pattern will be. Then we have rhythmic liberty and syncopation, that is controlled by the rhythm parameter. The melody range, so how many notes of the scale will allow Melodrift to use, and the range in terms of octaves. Let's get rhythm a bit down, and maybe octaves back to 1. Same as the rest of the generators, I can request a new interpretation of the parameters at any moment in time. Or I can set evolve from freeze, which means that my pattern stays static, to mutate. So I'll get a new pattern at every repetition. As the rest of the generators, I can load as many instances of Melodrift on the same project as I want. Let's add a bit of probability offset here. Maybe increase the density a bit. Together with these 3 track generators on Rlx 1.5, we get a new sequencer setting called link track. On link track, I can define any track of Reliq as a master transposition track. So now I can go on track 10 that I just chose, and if I sequence or I play a note, all of my tracks of type chord or melody will transpose accordingly. In this way, I can control the whole harmonic orientation of my composition on multiple tracks at the same time. The track generators on Reliq can be used and combined in many ways. They can listen to one another, they can be used as a starting point so we can load MIDI effects, different features of the sequencer on top of them, and use the link track to transpose them as a sort of a performative way of changing the tonal orientation of the tracks. We can also use them in combination with matrix routings, LFOs, envelopes, DAWs features or songs. But this gives a good overview of the starting point of Rlx 1.5 new track generators.